The Monk was the strongest single target damage class in Baldur's Gate 3, but everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked, which was patch 8 and Shadowblade. However, the Monk is still an extremely powerful class, so in this video I'll be doing a tier list of the best subclasses for the Monk in Baldur's Gate 3. Despite his power, the Monk is actually the least played class alongside the Ranger, Cleric, and Druid, but unlike the other classes, you don't get a Monk in your party naturally. Now, I want to mention one bug that's actually present with the Monk at the start of this video here. This applies to all the different subclasses, but the redirect missiles is only supposed to work if you can reduce the damage of a projectile to 0. It actually works now that if you just take the damage at all, you can redirect the projectile. So that hasn't been fixed as of patch 8, so I don't think that will get fixed. And redirect projectiles can actually benefit from things like Tavern Brawler. And speaking of Tavern Brawler, this is going to be considered for all the subclasses here, as it's likely the best feat to take at level 4 if you're going to play as a Monk. So a brief overview of the subclasses. The Open Hand Monk has crazy high DPS. This is a very powerful class. The Way of the Shadow is a bit more stealthy. Despite getting darkness, it can't actually see within it, so you may want to use different items that you can get throughout the game to benefit this class. But it does get the extremely powerful Pass Without Trace, which can give you a plus 10 to your stealth checks. With darkness, you can do some pretty crazy stuff there. The Way of the Drunken Master is kind of a role-play field class. If you want to use alcohol to get your key back, you can do that. But if you want something stronger, the Open Hand's really the way to go. And then with the Way of the Four Elements, this is cool because you do get some spells, and you also get access to some unique things like the Shaping of Ice. But we're going to first start off with the Way of the Open Hand. Now, what makes the Open Hand Monk so powerful is not just the Flurry of Blows choices that you get here. These are kind of similar to the Flurry of Blows you naturally get, but you get different effects on these, being able to push an enemy, stagger the enemy, or knock it prone. Now, staggering makes it so the enemy cannot use reactions, which begs the question, why would you want to do that when you could push the enemy away? Because if you wanted them to stop having reactions, you could just run away, or you can knock them prone, and then they can't get you with a counterattack. Well, with this, it doesn't have a check, whereas if you use the topple to knock them prone, there's a check for the enemy to succeed against. But if you're going to be hitting the target multiple times, it's better to go with the knocking them prone, which will give you the advantage against them, versus going with the stagger, which if you wanted to use stagger, its best use is actually just to hit an enemy and then run away. Now, upon hitting level 6 is when the Open Hand gets its big power spike, because you get the manifestation of body, mind, and soul, giving you the ability to add a 1d4 plus your wisdom modifier to your unarmed attacks. Now, just remember, you can hit twice with things like Flurry of Blows, so that's actually a doubling what you get. And things like psychic damage can be doubled with the use of the Resonant Stone, which you can get at the end of Act 2. Necrotic is meh. And what's cool about the Manifestation of Soul is adding Radiant damage can apply Radiating Orb gear. There is better sets of gear to use, but getting extra Radiant damage off on it is pretty cool. But you also get the Wholeness of Body. This is extremely good. You get half your key points, you get 15 healing, and you get a temporary state of wholeness where you get regain your key and get an extra bonus action. So you can do more Flurry of Blows. So you get half your key points, 3 extra key points, 1 per turn, and then that extra bonus action, which you can use to do things like your Flurry of Blows. Sometimes it's actually better for you just to pop this as your action if you're running out of key points, and then you just get another bonus action. So that could be 2 or even 3, which is oftentimes enough to take out multiple enemies. And at level 9, we actually get a very interesting ability here with the Key Resonation Punch. Now, the reason I think it's very interesting is if you are going to use something like Coralon's Grace, which is a staff that you can get in Act 1 that's going to give you bonuses to your unarmed attacks, you can actually punch while you have the staff in your main hand. Typically, you can't do that, but with this, it allows you to bypass that and do a punch. Now, it resonates Ki within the enemy's body, which then we can follow up and do the Ki Resonation Blast. This doesn't take an action or a bonus action. It just uses your key points. And the Ki Resonation Blast is also weird in how it works, because if you were to multi-class, it'll actually use your spell casting modifier for the dexterity save. So if you swapped into something else, not that you should ever really do that, as the Rogue Thief is the best multi-class for this, if you do, it will change the spell casting modifier, making it much easier for the enemy to succeed on their save against the Ki Resonation Blast. So this will make them take half damage instead, but just something to note. Pretty cool though, you can punch and then go ahead and blow it up there, and sometimes you can take out multiple enemies, especially if you're using something like Call of the Weak. So this is great if you're the face of the party and we want a big area of effect, because other than this, we don't have area of effect damage, so that's why I mentioned at the start, single target damage is kind of our specialty. The level 11 ability for the Open Hand Monk is kind of strange, so it's not worth going to grab it, but long rests surround you with Sanctuary, so you get Sanctuary. And seeing as you're a monk, a damage dealer, you're likely just going to run in and start punching things as the moment the combat starts. So I've never really got much use out of this anytime that I've tried to roll a 12 monk, like pure 12 class. Now, this monk obviously benefits a lot from going level 9 and then taking 3 levels of the Rogue Thief, because that extra bonus action for 100 plus damage is crazy. I'm not even min-maxing my build here, and you can already see that you're getting upwards of 80 damage on a bonus action. What's crazier is, again, if you take the Rogue Thief and then you use Wholeness of Body, this will give you your key points back, and then you can then blast away with 3 bonus actions. It's absolutely absurd. If you have the Helmet of Grit and you drop below 50% health, you can then get a 4th bonus action and lay down a can of whoop ass. It's absolutely absurd how high damage this is. And again, as mentioned, you can use that Key Resonation Punch to bypass through your staff or any main hand attack. So the Open Hand Monk is extremely powerful because it opens you up to using a lot more gear. This is honestly, I could talk about this all day. You guys know it's already the S tier choice, the best Monk subclass without a doubt. Next up, we have the Way of Shadow. Now, I think this is a very interesting one. I have a lot of fun with stealth mechanics in games. I don't know about you guys, but this is a fun one. It also does multi-class well with the Rogue Thief, somewhat like the Open Hand Monk, but I actually prefer to stay with the Way of the Shadow Monk all the way to level 11. You'll see why. So you get the ability to silence enemies. That's cool. It uses your key points. So 2 key points for these abilities here: Darkness, Pass Without Trace, and Shadow Art Tide. I really like Pass Without Trace. This is a concentration, but a +10 to stealth checks is extremely good, especially if you can have another person on your team cast greater invisibility on you. You can then basically stay invisible forever. And you also get Minor Illusion. I always like to have this on at least somebody on the team, so this can open up your cantrips on like your sorcerer or wizard. Now, this is the only class to get an ability at level 5, which is kind of interesting because it's almost if they'd be better without getting this ability. This one doesn't work very well, as you'll see. So, wrap yourself in shadows, become invisible if you're obscured. So, you have to be in a lightly or heavily obscured area. However, this will drop if you go from a lightly to a heavily obscured area or heavy to a lightly obscured area. It has a weird bug with it. So, yeah, you're likely going to break this often. All right, so see, we're lightly obscured. We can use this. It'll be blanked out if you can't. So we're in a lightly obscured area. Turn off these candles. Now we're invisible. Cool stuff. And then we go into our darkness and boom. Yeah, this didn't change. We're still obscured in both of these areas. However, it removed it. So it's just the way it's coded to change and remove it whenever it changes the detection in the obscured level. So yeah, weird. Just a heads up on that. It's not really that great. But think of redemption. And 1 level later, you get Shadow Step. This icon was actually reused with the Shadow Magic Sorcerer, so I love that. Teleport from one shadow to another. Afterwards, you have advantage on your next melee attack roll. Bonus action. And yeah, that's basically Misty Step without costing you a key point or a spell slot. It's just a bonus action, and then you get advantage on your next attack roll as a treat. It's great. Now, another interesting thing. This is the only subclass that doesn't get a level 9 ability. But once we get to level 11, I really like Shadow Strike. It's kind of annoying that you have to wait all the way to level 11 to get this ability, but it's well worth it, especially considering there's a Shadow Blade ring in the game. Now, at this point, if you're going to use Shadow Blade, you're better off, obviously, with something like the Eldritch Knight, playing as Gale. He can use his spell slot, or using Shadow Blade on like a Blade Singing Wizard, because you can get the 4d8 version of that, but this is 3d8 extra psychic damage. And if you have the Resonance Stone, you're going to double that extra damage, which is really nice. This does use 3 key points, and you can do it with an unarmed attack as well, which is really nice. Teleport to a foe from a hidden position, striking them with the creeping psychic ferocity of the shadows themselves. Really fun ability. I like it. It's kind of like a psychic type smite. Now, as you can see, pretty good damage. It does upwards of 58 damage, and that psychic damage is doubled. And just a heads up that whenever you use the Open Hand Monk, your bonus action can hit for over 100. So yeah, it's a good class, but it really heavily revolves around being able to see in darkness, which we can't naturally. So if you have to use the Eversight ring to get the full potential from this, or if you go with an evil route, you can use the Shara Spear of the Night, which you can then use as a weapon, and you can see in darkness because of it. So this is a strong class, obviously due to the shadow attacks and also stealth being so good in Baldur's Gate 3, especially if you're on a subsequent playthrough. But for new players, you might be better off going with the Open Hand Monk just because it's a little bit less clunky in certain regards. So I want to put this one into the A tier. I think it's definitely a fun option. Great stealth mechanics. It would benefit from having some type of extra way to see in darkness, because if you take 2 levels of the Warlock for Devil's Sight, you can't actually get the Shadow Strike here. So your darkness doesn't really benefit you unless you do use the Eversight ring. Now, the Way of the 4 Elements. This is a weird one. It benefits a lot from mods. There's many mods that correct how this class works because, let's be honest, it doesn't really do anything well. If you want to spellcast, you're way better off playing a sorcerer, a wizard, a warlock. If you wanted to punch things, you're better off playing an Open Hand Monk or a Shadow Monk. So yeah, it can do multiple things right, but it's not like the Bard. The Bard does those things, and it does them extremely good. This half-asses what it does, so it does struggle a bit because the damage output isn't as high. However, Fangs of the Fire Snake is kind of one of our best abilities here, and I do want to mention that you can get some pretty funny interactions if you steal the wood club from the Druid's Woodland Beings Wood Woad. So it's a really weird interaction, but if you use that twisting branch that you get from the wood woad, you can see there you can, oddly enough, use the fangs of the fire snake. It adds multiple damage riders and kind of multiplies the damage like a ridiculous amount, way more than it should. It's a glitch. It hasn't been corrected yet, but it works. Also, you're not supposed to be able to steal the wood woad's club, but I do have a video on how to do that. You basically just go into the inventory and yank it out of there. But that's besides the fact I'm really just trying to toss this subclass a bone because that's really the only viable option if you want to do something and have it be like I'm really strong. You can beat the game, you can solo the game with this for that matter, but you're gonna have a harder time just because its abilities aren't really that amazing. But I do like the ability to create a climbable ice cube. I think that's pretty cool. You also get the harmony of fire and water here. When you're not in combat, you can regain half your key points. It's nice to be able to get that at level 3. Cool ability there with the fire and the water. I really like the VFX for this class. We also get some more fun spells once we hit level 6 with things like Water Whip. We got the Gong of the Summit, Shatter spell, Embrace of the Inferno, and also the Clench of the North Wind. This is probably the best choice here. However, you can really do this with any other class. If you want to play a Bard and then do this, if you want to play a Warlock, a Paladin, you name it. You can do a lot of more powerful abilities than taking this subclass just to use the Clench of the North Wind, or really any of these spells for that matter. Once we hit level 9, we do get the improved elemental casting, which allows you to get an additional damage die on your Clench of the North Wind can now basically hold person on an extra person, and then our Scorching Ray counterpart gets an extra ray. Whoop-de-doo. You can do a lot more damage, again, with any of the other subclasses, so despite this buff, they still suck. When your sorcerer has learned Cone of Cold, and you're sitting here with Ice Knife and Embrace of the Inferno, it kind of sucks. Again, I do get that you're supposed to melee and also spell cast, but things like the Blade Seeing Wizard now exist, and they kind of make this irrelevant in a sense. Outside of if you want to play this, obviously. And once we hit level 11, we get Ride the Wind, which allows us to fly, but what's funny is if you're an Illithid, you get that ability already at this point. And also things like the Draconic Sorcerer can fly without spending 4 key points. That's your resource getting burned up. The Draconic Sorcerer can just fly naturally. The Storm Sorcerer can fly at level 1. Again, kind of comparing these to other casters because this ability is not that great. Mist Stance, not that great. And Flames of Phoenix, great spell, not at level 11. You'd be great at level 5, but unfortunately, yeah, 4 key points for a Fireball. It's just not a great deal. Like, yeah, hypothetically, if you really wanted to, you could go ahead, drop a Fireball down, and then go ahead and do a bonus action Flurry of Blows. That's not bad damage, but the Open Hand Monk can go punch and probably take out 2 targets, and then do a few more Flurry of Blows and do way more damage. So, yeah, it's not really that great, all things considered. It's fun for roleplay, but it isn't our true roleplay class. So, yeah, I'd have to say, if we were going to set this somewhere, it's probably a B tier choice. There's just not enough justification for picking this outside of if you just want to roleplay. Obviously, it's fun for roleplay, and don't let me get you wrong. If you want to play this subclass, go right ahead. It's just not as strong as the others. All right. So the Way of the Drunken Master, I actually went ahead and renamed this as RP tier because that's kind of where I think it's at. This class doesn't really do anything great either, but at least with the Way of the 4 Elements Monk, you got options. With this, it's still just punch, 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 and be worse than the Open Hand Monk. So the Drunken technique uses your bonus action and key point. It's basically a flurry of blows, but it gives you 3 meters movement speed and the benefits of disengage. Now, you can also get this again by the Open Hand Monk stagger or their push or their prone, really any of those abilities which have secondary effects. And while you do get extra movement speed, that's nice and all, but it's just meh. You do get immunity to the negative effects of being drunk. So again, roleplay tier, perfect for that. And regain half your key points right down when you drink alcohol, and then also get proficiency in performance. There are some other mods that will enhance the subclass because it kind of needs it. This is the only subclass to actually get a benefit at level 4 with the Life of the Party. So every time Intoxicating Strike hits, they get Life of the Party, which gives you a +1 armor class and attack rolls against strong targets. Now, we can actually, it's best to hold on to this, but we have an ability later on, and it unfortunately removes all of this, so we don't get those bonuses to the armor class, and it doesn't actually end up working the way you'd want it to work. And you do get that Intoxicating Strike here, but yeah, it uses your key point in your action to knock the target, or hit the bottle and knock them and get them drunk. It has a cool VFX animation. You literally throw a bottle and smash it in their face, which is awesome, if it would actually be a good option in combat compared to some of the other things that we got going on. So it's okay. At level 6, you basically get the mobile feat, so you get Leap to your feet, which when you're prone, you only use 1.5 meters of your movement speed to get back up, and you also get the Redirect attack, so when a creature misses you with a melee attack, you can spend 1 key point as a reaction to use your unarmed attack right back at them. That sounds great in theory, but if you're going to play a monk, you're likely using an item that does this exact same thing without spending your key points. The Vest of Soul Rejuvenation gets the greater Kashigo counter there, which allows you to use a reaction to make an unarmed strike against any attacker that misses. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing without the key point cost. although you do get redirect attack at level 6. And nothing till we get to level 9, and we get the sobering realization. Now, this isn't really that good. Hit a drunk target and sober them up by dealing a bonus 2d8 of psychic damage. On successful hit, the monk loses their life of the party, so that bonus armor class that you built up, gone. So yeah, it's just not that good. Sobering realization also does that psychic damage, which you can double, so that's great, but the Shadow Monk has a 3d8 damage that they add, and it doesn't lose any of your benefits that you got. You just have to attack from the shadows, so yeah, it's just meh. The level 11 ability is pretty good, but the big downside is you have to take this class to level 11. When you make an ability check, a attack roll or saving throw and have disadvantage, you can spend 2 key points to negate the disadvantage for that roll. I mean, it's something. It needs anything it can get. Now, something cool about this class is you can actually use wine goblets in combat, and it won't use your action or bonus action if you want to get the drunk condition applied to yourself. And also, this, despite there being drunk's gear in the game, like you can use the drunkard's, the drunken cloth, the punch drunk bastard, anything like that, these abilities are kind of not that powerful, and you're probably oftentimes better off just going with the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation, despite this having an overlap with your subclass. So as I mentioned, this is going straight up in the role play tier, just because it doesn't really do anything special above the other subclasses in this game. And when there's so many powerful subclasses, it's hard to want to play the Drunken Master Monk, especially when the open hand is just so strong. So there it is. We got open hand first place. Shadow Monk, really fun, especially on a stealth-based playthrough. The 4 Elements Monk is kind of close to the roleplay tier, but it does have some benefits. And then roleplay tier Drunken Master Monk. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you have a great day. We'll catch you all in the next video, and subscribe if you haven't already. Peace.